Good evening, everyone. If you can kindly find a seat. I'm just waiting for Jacob to take his seat in the control tower here. I want to thank you for coming out tonight. And those of you tuning in on Zoom, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, to this Stand With Israel talk. I'd like to begin tonight with a prayer on behalf of all of us assembled, that God Almighty should watch over all of our brothers and sisters in Israel, from the north to the south, from the east to the west. God should protect the hundreds of thousands of brave and courageous Chayalim, the members of the IDF. And God should miraculously rescue each and every one of the 230 hostages and bring them home now. There is much to talk about. So I'd like to start my remarks by sharing with you a debate that took place on the radio many years ago in Ottawa. The debate was between the Israeli ambassador to Canada, the late Rabbi Dr. Yaakov Herzog, and Professor Arnold Toynbee. Now, Toynbee was a famous historian from Great Britain, not very fond of us, and he argued quite publicly that the Jewish people were not a nation and therefore not entitled to a country of their own. He said that the Jewish people are basically a bunch of refugees scattered all over the world, a religious sect at best, but not a nation. And now it's Dr. Herzog's turn to respond. And this is what he said, and I'll paraphrase it. He said, imagine the following scenario. You're at the airport in Athens, Greece. An Olympic airline jet lands on the runway. On board of this plane is an old man. This old man was given permission by heaven to come back to this earth. And check out his native Athens. He disembarks and he's greeted by a steward. He's talking, but the guy doesn't understand the word he's saying. They search high and low, and finally they locate a translator who knows some ancient Greek. Who are you? The steward asks through the interpreter. He says, I'm Socrates, the famous philosopher from Athens. Well, what can we do for you, Mr. Socrates? He says, can you direct me to the Acropolis? The Acropolis? The Acropolis is in ruins. What about the Temple of Zeus? Any worship of Neptune going on tonight? Mr. Socrates, there's no Temple of Zeus in Greece. There is a church, a Greek Orthodox church, but it belongs to Christianity. Well, that's bizarre. How many countries, he asks, are now under the control of our illustrious Greek Empire? He says, none. Greece is a small country. It's a small piece of geography. The Greece you're standing in today has nothing in common with the Greece that you and Aristotle knew. The man gets on his plane. Now he really has something to philosophize about. Another part of the world, says Dr. Herzog, an Alitalia flight lands at an airport near Rome. Again, an old man disembarks, again given permission by heaven to journey on back to earth. He tries to communicate, but nobody knows what he's talking about. He keeps pointing to himself, saying, Julius Caesar, Julius Caesar. He's waiting for everyone to bow before him, but nobody does. So they find some professor who knows the ancient Latin language of Rome, which of course has nothing in common with the Italian language the people there speak today. Julius Caesar says, take me to the Colosseum so I can watch the gladiators go at it. The guy says, Mr. Caesar, around here today, you're only known as a salad. We can take you either with vinaigrette or with Thousand Islands. Works either way. But the Colosseum is no more. The Colosseum is in ruins. So take me to the temple of Jupiter. Jupiter, who's Jupiter? We have a Vatican here. It's a church, a different religion altogether. It's called Catholicism. It has a pope. Well, how's the empire doing? Do we control all of the world or just 3/4 of it? Is everyone still doing like the Romans? In my day, we used to say, when in Rome, do like the Romans. He says, yeah, they still say that, but there aren't many people living in Rome nowadays. Ancient Rome is gone. It's history. It's the stuff of old movies. So these two personalities, says Dr. Herzog, come to visit their home cities, but it's nothing like the home and the cities they once knew. There's a third passenger, says Dr. Herzog. He lands in Tel Aviv on an El Al airplane. This old man steps off and he kisses the ground. A worker from Ben Gurion Airport sees this saintly looking man in this flowing white beard. He walks over to him and he says, Shalom Aleichem. And the man immediately responds, Aleichem Shalom. Bruchim Haboim, welcome. It's an honor to meet you. What's your name, he says in Hebrew. The man answers, Bruchim Hanimtzaim. My name is Moshe. Moshe. Wow. I'm also Moshe. I'm Moshe Katzenberg. I live in Lod. I was born in Russia. Wow. They would call me Moshe Rabbeinu. Some call me Moses. I'm from the desert. I was born in Egypt. Have you been to Israel before? No, first time actually. So, it's not your homeland? Oh, it's very much my homeland. You see, every day of my life, every day of my existence for 120 years on earth, and every day in the heavenly world since, I visualized every square inch of this land in my mind, even though I never stepped foot in it. Moses continues, Achi, my dear brother, my brother Moshe Katzenberg, may I ask you a big favor? Sure, whatever you want. I just finished flying all through the night, and I realize now it's the morning, and I don't have my tefillin with me. Can you tell me maybe where I can get hold of a pair of tefillin? Sure, you can borrow mine. Thank you so much. What about a talit, woven with the tzitzit, that God instructed me at Mount Sinai thousands of years ago? Does anyone still have one? Sure, I have one. We all have. You can use mine. Wow, Moshe says. I don't want to be a nudge, but is there any place nearby that I can catch a minyan for Shachris? The morning prayers? Betach Rabbeinu, of course. We have a synagogue right here in the airport. The old man with the long, white, flowing beard follows Moshe Katzenberg to the synagogue in the Ben Gurion airport. On his way into the room, he puts his hand on a mezuzah. A mezuzah written with the exact same letters, in the exact same form as those he himself, Moses, taught the Jewish people some 3,300 years ago. And during the services, they take the Torah out. They call him up for an aliyah. Ya'amod harav Moshe ben Amram Halevi. And he comes up to the Torah. It's the exact same Torah that Moses wrote in the desert 3,330 years ago. The exact same letters, all 304,000 letters, exact the same. Says Ambassador Herzog to Professor Toynbee, same religion, same language, same faith, same commandments, same homeland. If this is not a nation, then tell me, Professor, what is a nation? My dear friends, the war Israel is facing today is not about land. Any honest student of history knows that. There has never been a Palestinian state, not pre-1948, not pre-1967, not pre-1973, not in the 15th century, 16th century, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, or 21st century. God gave this land to the children of Israel as an inheritance, belonging to each and every Jew. Every believer of the Bible knows this. Every honest historian knows this. Every archaeologist can back this up. We were exiled from this land for 2,000 years, but never, ever stop referring to it as our homeland. Never stop praying and longing for our return. Never ceded an inch of ownership of this land. The Balfour Declaration of 1917 declared the area known today as Israel and Jordan, that region, to be divided into two states, one for the Jews and one for the Arabs. Yeah, a two-state solution back in 1917. The Arab state would be much larger than the Jewish state. All of what is today Jordan, then called Transjordan. And yet the Arabs said no. It was never about land. Fast forward, 2005. Israel mistakenly disengaged, as it was called, from the entire Gaza Strip, in the hope and in the dream that it would somehow lead to peace. It physically dragged our own settlers out of Gush Katif. It left behind greenhouses that yielded amazing crops, with the false hopes that the Palestinians would develop something beautiful, fruitful, and productive there for their people. And what did Israel get in return? Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of rockets lobbied into the southern cities. And yet the world still points its finger at Israel. Imagine if Hamas were to take all of the funds, all of the energy, all of the materials and resources that it had invested in acquiring and launching rockets of terror and in building these tunnels of death, and used it all instead to invest in their own people, to build an infrastructure, to build a productive society. For every tunnel that required some 500 tons of concrete, they could have built a hospital, a factory, a housing development, a hotel, a paradise on the Mediterranean. Imagine they actually used the billions and billions of dollars that they receive each and every year in world support, and they use their funds, these funds, to help their own. But no. Instead, they chose to build hellholes of destruction. They chose to terrorize and to kidnap and to murder. And the world still points its finger at Israel. The enemy that attacked us on October 7th, Hamas, as well as Hezbollah in the north, and the country behind it all, Iran, what exactly is it that they want? Usually in a conventional war, the enemy has tangible objectives: conquest of land, resources, power, money. So what's the objective of this enemy? What do they want? And they never made a secret of it. Maybe just we didn't believe them. They stated clearly and openly in their charter, this is not and never was a conflict about land. It's the very existence of Israel that they want surrendered. It's the entire Jewish nation that they want exterminated. Make no mistake about it. What was done to 1,400 of our fellow Jews in Israel is what they and their supporters want done to each and every single one of us. If they could, they would. Indeed, as Jews, we abhor war. But when there is a sworn enemy who challenges your very right of existence, your right as a human being to simply live, then the war against this enemy is an act of peace. Then the war against this enemy is an act of compassion. Then the war against this enemy is an act of preserving life. Look, any fear-minded, sane, civilized person understands that when you are attacked, when your home is violated, when your children are kidnapped, you have an obligation, a moral obligation to fight. Everybody understands that the most basic and fundamental rule of nationhood is that when your borders are breached, when your cities are bombed, when your citizens are killed, you better mount a vigorous defense if you want to continue to remain a standing nation. How much more so when we witness the atrocities of October the 7th, Simchas Torah, just a few short weeks ago. Atrocities that go beyond anything Israel has ever seen before. The only reference to such evil is the Holocaust. As 5,000 missiles rained down on southern Israel, 3,000 bloodthirsty terrorists breached its border. They were prepared. They were very well prepared. They came in with heavy weaponry, with machine guns, with grenades, with knives, with the most evil of intentions. Their goal was to savagely murder every living being that they encountered. They were instructed to use every imaginable and unimaginable brutality that their sick and evil minds couldn't come up with. In the manual that they were carrying on them, it said to quote unquote, dirty the women, which were their words to instruct the savages to rape and to take as many possible as hostages and bring them back to Gaza. Now you all know what happened. You all know the numbers. 1,400 murdered. Over 300 of them chayalim, soldiers. Thousands wounded. 230 taken hostage. I'm here to tell you that even those numbers don't begin to tell you the full scope of the story. The full scope of the evil. The full scope of what this war is all about. A group of 27 of us representing communities in the United States and Canada organized the first rabbinic solidarity mission since the war began. We went because we wanted to personally deliver a message to the people of Israel, to its families, to its soldiers, to its government, to its leaders, to the victims, that we, the American Jewish community, stand behind you and stand with you, that you're not alone, that we will have your back. that we cry with you, we mourn with you, we fight with you, and we stand with you. You have no idea what this meant to the people, to the many that we met during this visit. The media attention that this generated wherever we went. We were surrounded by cameras, some from Israeli news stations, many from those outside the world that don't necessarily give us the best of coverage. But as you will hear from my words tonight, the people of Israel also have a message that they have asked us to return back to you. My first stop, literally 30 minutes after getting off the plane, was the Hostage Crisis Center. We met with many families who have lived through pure anguish for the past 3 weeks. It's hard to imagine the depth of the living hell these families are coping with every second of every day. Their sons, their daughters, their brothers, their sisters, fathers, mothers, grandfathers, grandmothers, grandsons, and granddaughters, held hostage by monsters somewhere in the tunnels under Gaza. We asked them to tell us about their loved ones. You see, they're more than just a name. They're more than just a picture. They are each a person with personality, with a life, with aspirations, with family, with friends, with boyfriends and girlfriends, with dreams. I got to know Omer Shem Tov up close. His parents are Shelley and Malki Shem Tov. Omer is our brother. He's my brother. He's your brother. I speak to Shelley just about every day. Yesterday was Omer's birthday. I told her that I would be speaking here tonight to those here and those throughout the world following on social media, and I asked her what she would want me to convey. And so she sent me a message. And although it's a video message, I'll play the sound for all of you, and I'll post the video later on the Facebook page. So I'll put it next to the microphones here so you can hear. This is Shelley Shem Tov, the mother of Omer Shem Tov, who's being held hostage right now.
Hi, I'm the mother of Omer Shem Tov. My name is Shelley. Omer is my youngest son. He's 21 years old. He was kidnapped on Saturday to Gaza. He is with the Hamas. He's healthy, and we just want him to come back home as soon as possible. Please help us to bring back home Omer. I am now in his room, and I want to show you. He left his room like this, and I'm waiting for Omer to come back home. To organize his room. I believe that Omer is alive, and I believe he will come back home. And please, no mother in all over the world needs to feel like this, that her son is going to a party, and then after a day, she doesn't know if he's alive, if they're giving him food, if they're giving him to sleep, or if they're beating him. So please, please help us to bring back not only Omer. There are children, there are babies, there are mothers, fathers, grandmothers. There is a lot of people they took to Gaza, and we want them to come home. So please help us to bring them home. Thank you.
I want you to meet Amit Esther Buskila from Ashdod. I met her brother, her mother, her uncle, and they couldn't stop the tears. They couldn't stop crying when they're telling us about Amit. Amit was at the festival, she was at the concert, and she called her uncle early Saturday morning from the festival, and she said, there are terrorists here and they're shooting. And he yelled, run, run, run. And he hears lots of screaming, he told me. Lots of screaming and shouting. And then he hears the shooting. And he hears his niece scream. She's been shot. She's alive but badly wounded. He hears the chaos in the back. Her body was not found. The government informed the family that they have reason to believe that she's been taken hostage. Her brother begs us, do something, please do something. I want you to meet Eliakim Shlomo Liebman. He was a security guard at the festival. He rescued many youngsters from the attack. He kept on going back. Where everyone was running away, he was going back. They were kids. And he kept on bringing them out to safety and going back for more. He heard from one that there were 2 girls that were shot close to where the terrorists were. They were lying on the ground in blood. Chances are they weren't alive. He tells his partner, we have to go. His partner says, we're not going back, they will be killed. We don't even know if they're alive. He says to his partner, then I'm going back myself. Even if they're dead, we have to bring their bodies back. Eliakim has not been heard from since. We met his father, Eliyahu, his mother, Avishag, and his sister. Eliyahu Liebman is the mayor of Kiryat Arba. I have never met people with such emunah, with such faith, with such bitachon. He told us that he knows his son is alive, and he knows that he will be home soon. He told us that at that very moment that we're sitting there in Kiryat Arba with him, he has another son fighting in Gaza. That was the first night that Israeli soldiers went into Gaza, and he was on that team. He has another son on the northern border. I'm listening to parents talk about a son that's stuck as hostage in Gaza, another son fighting in Gaza, another son fighting by the Lebanese border. And what's he talking about? His love for Eretz Yisrael. His love for Israel. His love for the people of Israel. And his pride and his nachas of his children. There are 230 families that have not slept, that have not eaten. And they are our family. I hate to say it to you this way. I need you to think for a moment of this very, very painful scenario. If this was your child, if this was your grandchild, if this was your brother, if this was your sister? Well, they are. They're ours. It's our family. There are Holocaust survivors among the hostages. Think, how evil can a world be that it tolerates someone that went through concentration camps to be kidnapped by Hamas? And the United Nations has still not condemned it or demanded their release. They keep trying to pass resolutions that say what? Demanding that Israel halt its operations. Cease fire. But nothing demanding the release of the hostages. There are 33 children being held hostage. Where is the world? Children. The youngest 9 months old. 9 months old, and still on the college campuses in America, they're tearing down these posters with a picture of a child being held hostage because we, Israel, are the aggressors. Is there no shame? Have we reached a point that evil is now morally acceptable? That you kidnap a 9-month-old child and millions throughout the world demonstrate against the victims. They're marching en masse and showing support with the greatest display of demonstration of evil since Hitler and the Nazis. And they're demonstrating in favor of Hamas. We visited numerous hospitals filled with many of the wounded in the October 7th attack. Many were residents of the kibbutzim in the south, along the Gaza border. In the last talk that I gave from Jerusalem, which you can find on YouTube, I spoke about many of these kibbutzim and what they represented, and that they're from the earliest of days of Israel, 1948, and from even before. Many of the wounded were from these kibbutzim. Many of the wounded were from the thousands of missiles launched by Hamas and continue to launch every single day into Israel. And as much as you hear about the Iron Dome doing its work, and in 80% or 90% it's successfully intercepting these missiles, even when it intercepts, the shrapnel falls and causes death and injury. Let alone when it doesn't connect. And these missiles hit apartment buildings and hit cars. Many of the wounded that we visited were soldiers. Soldiers who risked their lives to save hundreds, if not thousands of others. Some of the wounded, unfortunately, were missing arms, missing legs. We sang with them. We prayed with them. We gave them letters of love that you sent along with us. We gave monetary support to those families whose breadwinner was now hospitalized and whose worry while in the hospital was who's going to put food at the table for their family, for their children, or who would pay rent. We were able to relieve them of at least this concern. I heard stories from these in the hospital of bravery and heroism. Rambo has nothing on those we met. Many of them just itching to get out of the hospital so that they can get back to the front line. I met a soldier who got a call from his wife that the house was surrounded by terrorists. They lived in one of the kibbutzim of the south. She and her 2 children ran into the bedroom. They had this big wooden chest under one of the beds. She grabbed the chest, she put the children in, she jumped in the chest, and she closed the chest. She's hiding in a chest under a bed in her bedroom. She has her cell phone and she's whispering to her husband, who's miles away, "There are terrorists in our home." He drove as quickly as any human being can. He gets to his home and he sees dozens of terrorists with machine guns in front and inside his house. He knows his wife and his 2 children are in that house. He lets loose. He goes for it. He starts taking them down one at a time. He shot himself in the arm. One of the bullets from the terrorists shoot him, and he won't stop. It's his wife and his children. And he continues going, taking down 10 terrorists, 15 terrorists, 20 terrorists. He won't stop. In the meantime, his wife inside the chest, she has her hands on the mouths of her children so they shouldn't make a sound. She hears the terrorists entering the bedroom, and they're sitting on the bed, the very bed that she's under. And Rambo outside won't stop shooting. So they keep leaving the room to go to the house to continue the fight with this lone guy that won't stop. And finally, they give up trying to find anyone in this house. So what do? They set it ablaze. They set the entire house on fire. She's now inside a chest with 2 children, and the house is filling up with smoke and flames very quickly. When she could no longer breathe, she makes a run for it with her 2 kids in hand. There's fire everywhere. There's gunshots going the entire time. Picture this. A Jewish woman with 2 children in her arms. She runs out of the house. She runs into a shack in the backyard of a neighbor. And she remains hidden there for 6 hours. Her husband, bloodied and badly wounded from being shot, doesn't know the whereabouts of his wife and children. Were they in the house when it was burned to the ground? It was only after dark that she comes out and is rescued by the Israeli army, reunited with her husband. You're sitting on a bedside in the hospital and you're hearing this story, the stuff that movies are made from, and you're just talking to individuals, regular people going hospital bed to hospital bed, one story like this after another. I met an 18-year-old female soldier who took 12 bullets to her body. She continued fighting. She lost 7 of her fellow soldiers that day. We hear so much about the colossal failure of Israel to protect the southern border on October 7th. And yes, I'm sure there will be investigations as to how this happened. But I want you to know, we need to know, that it could have been so much worse had it not been for so many brave heroes. So many of them are just ordinary people. Some were security people. Some hearing what was going on, and instead of running for cover, they ran into harm's way to save lives. Some survived. Some were badly wounded. Some paid the ultimate sacrifice with their lives. Many of the brave young men and women of the IDF literally single-handedly took down dozens and dozens of terrorists, saving many, many lives. Doctors and nurses that we met in these hospitals have not been home since October 7th. Haven't been home. They take quick naps at the hospital and they're right back to work. We went to many Shiva homes. Some that are still sitting Shiva because their loved ones were just identified. Some that just got up from Shiva. They're broken. They are in mourning. But I tell you that they are strong. They are proud. They talk of the heavy price of having a land of our own. A Jewish homeland. Not one regret living in Israel. Not one talks about moving. This is their homeland. We met many evacuees, full communities uprooted from both the south and the north. Those in the south, many of them lost friends and lost neighbors, suffered many casualties, all uprooted. No schools, no work, no jobs. I stayed at a hotel in Jerusalem called the Leonardo Hotel. It was shared by 27 Chabad rabbis and the entire kibbutz Maiman from the kibbutz next to Gaza. That hotel was turned into a kibbutz. Kids running everywhere all time of day and night. There's a miracle of kibbutz Maiman. They're from the lucky ones. A helicopter carrying 50 soldiers to the south had a crash landing. All 50 survived the crash. The helicopter exploded 2 minutes after the landing. But there are now 50 soldiers that landed right in front of kibbutz Maiman. That kibbutz was saved because of that crash. And every day they thank God for the miracle of their saving. But they all know people in the neighboring kibbutzim that didn't survive. And their children have friends from school that didn't survive. And at this hotel, they're making a shift school for them. We'll use this room for those of this age. Trying to put together whatever life can look like. One room was dedicated for people from Jerusalem to come and bring clothing. Because all they had was that they were wearing that day. They haven't been back into their houses yet. Immediately, the room was filled with new clothing of all sizes. Computers were brought so that the kids can play with something, toys and games. One of the nights that they were there, one of these kids say to one of us, "You know, we didn't have Simchas Torah this year. Is it okay if we have our Simchas Torah now?" And this rabbi from Los Angeles, Michi Rabnoi, happened to have a guitar with him. Took out his guitar and started playing some songs. And these kids started dancing. And then the kids ran to their rooms and got their parents to come out to dance as well. And at 12 midnight in a hotel in Jerusalem, Kibbutz Maiman celebrated their Simchas Torah. I want you to know that the greatest acts of hachnasas orchim, of hospitality, perhaps in our history, is going on right now in Israel. There are hundreds of thousands of people been evacuated from their homes. Some are getting vouchers for hotels, but most of them are going to other people's homes all throughout Israel. And they're being welcomed in, and they're being taken care of, and they're being fed. Children are being played with. A few of us went to an army base called the Shura Army Base. It's on the outskirts of central Israel city called Ramla, not to be confused with Ramallah. Ramla. This was not your typical army base. This is the base where most of the bodies of the victims of October the 7th were brought. We met with the team that were and still are responsible for body identification. Over 1,200 bodies were brought to this one base. These are career soldiers, many of them high-ranking soldiers, brave, courageous, men that have faced heavy battle in their lives, men that have stared the enemy in the face in past wars. And these brave men could not hold back the tears when describing what they saw. Mothers burned to death holding their children in their arms. Limbs cut off while alive. They're doing DNA testing on limbs to see which limb belongs to which body. Just today, a body part was identified belonging to a girl they thought was kidnapped. It turns out she was burned to death and only ashes and a few bones remain. Babies beheaded. They told us of bodies burned beyond any recognition, many that will never be identified. Yeah. It's been weeks, and there's still freezer container after container holding corpses that they have yet to be able to identify. These soldiers, they stood at attention. They opened these freezer containers. And they asked us to say Kaddish. Because their families can't even sit Shiva yet because they don't know if their loved one is in one of these freezers or their loved one is in Gaza. As a child of a Holocaust survivor, I grew up with the pain of my father. I knew it was always there within him. I never got to see my grandparents from my father's side. I never saw my uncle, my aunts. 6 million of our people. 1.5 million children. And like the rest of you, I grew up with many questions. Aside for the big unanswered question of God, the God question, I was always troubled by where was American Jewry when 6 million of our people were being put into concentration camps, into gas chambers, into the crematoria? Where were they? I know about the silence of the world, but what about the Jewish people living in those days? Were there mass protests? Was there any lobbying going on? Now you can say they didn't know. You could say the news was slow getting out or non-existent. You can say they were powerless. You can say they didn't have influence. You can try any of these answers. I don't know. It's a haunting question, not for now, but it's a question. So the post-Holocaust Jewish generation came up with a slogan: never again. Never again will we allow the world to remain silent when our brothers and sisters are being slaughtered. Never again will we remain silent when our sons and daughters are murdered for the simple crime of being Jewish. Never again will we allow Jewish babies to be grabbed from their parents and slaughtered. Never again will we allow the raping of our daughters. Never again will we allow our elders to be beaten to death. Never again will we allow the stealing of our children, of our brothers and sisters, of our fathers and mothers, of our bubbies and zaydis. Never again will we allow the murder of innocents for the only crime of being a Jew. Never again. My dear friends, never again is now. It's now. These evil, genocidal, jihadist Nazis, they savaged, they raped our sisters and our daughters and then paraded them through the streets of Gaza for public taunting and beating, as prizes, as trophies. Never again is now. In their sickness and in their depravity, they videotape with GoPros the atrocities that simply cannot be fathomed or believed. Just a few days ago, Israel selected a pool of 100 reporters to show these clips. They came out crying, shaking, in total shock. The men I met at the Shura Army base also prepared a file of photos of what they saw. They documented everything. And they have insisted to the Prime Minister's office that Israel must insist that any head of state that comes to visit must see these files. And the Prime Minister agreed. And every time you're seeing a Prime Minister or a President from another country visiting Israel, they are shown the files of the Shura Army base so that they will know why there can be no holding back of Israel this time. Parents were forced to watch their children being cut into pieces with their very eyes, and they videotaped it. They tortured small babies. They took infants and swung their heads on the ground in front of their parents. Parents screaming in horror. Never again. Never again is now. Another clip had parents shot in front of their 2 young children. They shot the children, but they didn't kill them. The 10-year-old was shot in the eye. And then these monsters take a break. They go to the fridge. They take out a bottle of Coca-Cola. And they pour themselves a drink. 2 little Jewish boys in a house. Their parents killed before their eyes. Both of these little boys are bleeding from bullet wounds. 1 shot in the eye. And you hear him pleading to the terrorist, "Kill me, kill me. Why am I not dead? Kill me." Begging to be killed. Never again is now. They used a garden hoe to keep chopping away at necks of live people until their heads were cut off from their bodies. In one video clip, one of the monsters calls his mom, bragging that he just killed 10 Jews with his own hands. And I'm using their phone to call you to tell you about it. And she says to her murderous son, "May God protect you." Nachas, nachas. This is our moment to correct history. This is our moment to answer the call. Will we remain silent or will we act? Never again is now. You see, what's so different today than during the Holocaust is that today there is Eretz Yisrael. Today there's a strong nation of Israel. Today there is Tzahal, there is an IDF. Today there is an Israeli Air Force. Today there are the most advanced, sophisticated tanks in the world in Israel. Today there is an Israel Naval Command. Today we have guns. Today we have an Iron Dome. Today we have an iron laser. We have the most sophisticated, technological, advanced weaponry in the world. Today there are hundreds of thousands of brave young men and women honored to wear the uniform of the IDF. Honored to be given the mission to destroy the enemy. Which leads me to one more stop on our solidarity mission. Our visit to the army bases on the southern border. These young men and women are ready. They are there, they are strong, and they know they carry with them a united people. They go into battle knowing that all the Jewish world is with them. Not just the Jews of today, but the Jews of yesterday. The 6 million holy souls are with them. They're fighting for them too. Never again is now. They know they're representing the Jews of all of history. And I said this when I spoke to them, and I say it to you, make no mistake about it. These fighters are our modern day Maccabees. The way we always looked at the Maccabees of the story of Hanukkah, that's what I saw at these army bases. Brave, courageous, heroic, holy souls. My friends, those here and those listening, silence no more. My dear fellow Jew, let us stand up and be counted. Now is the time, for never again is now. Israel will do what it needs to do. It will destroy Hamas. And if Hezbollah makes the mistake that King Hussein made in the 1967 war, it will face its destruction as well. Israel will finish the job. And yes, the world has already begun to yell and scream and protest. Be ready for it. All we can say is, what else is new? But where is this really coming from? Is it really coming from concern about Muslims being killed, about Arabs being killed, about Palestinians being killed? That's been happening well before modern Israel was founded and well after its establishment. When the Palestinians were oppressed by Egypt, I didn't see any demonstrations going on college campuses. I didn't see 100,000 people in England demonstrating. When the Palestinians were oppressed by Jordan, I didn't hear of any demonstrations. When Gaza was an open-air prison with Egypt as the occupying power, I didn't see any demonstrations. As I said earlier today in class, I was fascinated to see the Queen of Jordan speak out against the Israeli oppressors, even though they are officially at a peace with Israel. And all I wanted was the reporter that was interviewing her to say 2 words to the Queen of Jordan. Black September. Black September. No questioning of Jordan. Jordan is the homeland of the Palestinian people. Most of the people living in Jordan today are Palestinians. They are really the brothers of those that live in Gaza. And Jordan won't let a single one in out of fear that they'll overthrow the government of Jordan. Isn't it interesting that everyone yells at Israel for not opening their border and allowing in the people of Gaza, and yet not a word about the Egyptian border? Not a word about all the Arab nations could send ships and pick up as many refugees as they want. Not a single one will. But the finger will always be pointed at Israel. The hypocrisy and the double standards are so glaring that I think the question answers itself. All of this moral outrage that we see is nothing but old-fashioned anti-Semitism. You can call it free Palestine, you can call it free Gaza, you can call it anything you want, but anti-Semitism by any other name is still just that. It's anti-Semitism. And the only way we fight anti-Semitism is by being united, by being strong, and by being proud. And so today, I ask for a call to action, for us to mobilize and stand up for Israel. The media's turn against Israel is only going to get louder and louder. Stand with Israel. Every day you're going to hear about some other house that was bombed in Gaza. You're going to hear about a hospital. You're going to hear everyday stories. Stand with Israel. They need to do what they need to do. These atrocities can never, ever happen again. Not in Israel and not anywhere in the world. Israel must send a message to the world: never again. The UN condemnations will only get louder and they will get stronger. Stand with Israel. World leaders, many of them dictators themselves, will voice their opinions, demanding a ceasefire. I love that Putin is demanding a ceasefire. Okay. All right. That makes so much sense. Stand with Israel. So I'd like to outline for you tonight a number of action items. Number one, we're forming a local task force that will volunteer for local projects. These will include hostage awareness, putting up posters wherever you possibly can. You have them on your table right over here. Those out there in Zoom land, you'll let us know if you want to be part of this task force. We will get you posters to you. We will put up banners. We will be putting ads in newspapers. We want the awareness of the community. We want the awareness of the entire country. We want the awareness of the entire world to be concerned and to care about these hostages. How many of you remember 1979, the American hostages in the embassy in Tehran? Do you remember those days? Yep. Everyone, that's all we talked about every day, the hostages. We need to create that environment in the world. Do you remember we were all tying yellow ribbons on our front lawn? Remember the hostages. Let's start motivating our community, motivating and mobilizing the Jewish community. We have to put hostage awareness front and center. We will hold community rallies. Don't underestimate the value of these rallies and what they mean to the people of Israel. I was in a hospital by one of the bedsides of a wounded soldier, and the mother of this soldier says to me, look what someone sent me. And there's a video of some rally going on a street corner in Phoenix, Arizona. She was so moved, she was so touched. It means a lot to the people of Israel to know that we care enough. That yes, we stand by the freeway, we stand by street corners. We are in touch with various army bases. When they send us a list of specific items that they need, this task force will help collect them, pack them, and get them shipped off. As evacuees make their way to our region, we want the community to rally together to help them with their needs, because they will be coming here as well. Our task force will identify them and make sure they're well cared for during their stay. Our task force will also be dealing with congressional and political liaisons, helping any students on a college campus that is facing the anti-Semitism they're facing. So if you want to be part of this task force, whether those in this room, those listening on Zoom, YouTube, Facebook, sign up. I'll give you a website address. It's chabadconejo.com, chabadconejo.com/action, ACTION. Those of you in this room, you have it on forms on your chair. You have pens there as well, so you can fill it out tonight. If you want to be part of this task force, you will be asked to do some work. So if you don't have the time for it, don't sign up. But if you sign up, we will assign you tasks to do. Action item number 2. And I say this to all of you in this room and to all of you out there. Monetary support. Before I left to Israel, I sent out a single email, just one, asking for financial support for an Israel Emergency Relief Fund. Thanks to the generosity of those who responded, I took along with me and distributed tens of thousands of dollars. Combined with my 26 colleagues from all over the United States who did the same from collections in their communities, wherever we went, where there was a need, we helped. In 4 days on the ground, we contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is by way of supplies for soldiers, bulletproof vests, clothing, gloves, headlamps, Swiss Army knives. We purchased and delivered gifts to all those in the hospitals, ranging from pairs of tefillin to some that wanted, to tablets. We got protective helmets. We went to Ashkelon. Ashkelon had 1,200 missiles. The day we were visiting, they were up to the number 1,200, and it's been many more since. 1,200 missiles have come into this one city of Ashkelon. 100 intercepted by the Iron Dome, 200 leaving large holes in apartment buildings. There are workers out there every single day trying to do the repair. These workers don't have protective helmets themselves. We took up a collection right then and there, and we purchased helmets for all of the workers in Ashkelon that are out there fixing the places where missiles struck. We supported a food bank in the south for all those in Sderot that are stuck in their homes. There's no markets that are open. Toys and games for young children that were forced to evacuate. I ran into, listen to this, a group, 30 orphan children from Ukraine. The orphanage in Ukraine, when the war broke out, needed to get these orphan kids out. It was a Jewish orphanage, so where'd to go? They went to Israel. They got a house, in all places, in Ashkelon. And now 1,200 missiles are flying over Ashkelon. These 30 children were now moved to a temporary shelter in Kfar Chabad, and some of the funds that you sent in are helping these 30 children. The list goes on and on. There is so much chesed to be done. There is so much kindness that needs to be done. I'm in close touch now on a daily basis with many wonderful people doing the work on the ground, in the hospitals, in the homes, in the evacuee centers, in the hostage relief center. A young boy who lost his father, his mother, and 2 sisters is having a bar mitzvah in a few days. We will help, not only to celebrate his bar mitzvah, but for the months ahead. There is so much need. We can and we will help. Now we normally here in the Conejo Valley, we normally hold a match campaign around Thanksgiving time. We raise considerable funds. Tonight I announce that we will move that match campaign to open right now. We will start this campaign this evening, and we will use these funds to bolster our support for all of these projects and programs in Israel, both on the ground there and with the things from here that we can do to help. The funds will be allocated to be used in 4 different categories of support: for victims of terror, for soldiers' needs, for the evacuees, and for the hostage family and awareness projects. And because it's a match campaign, every dollar you contribute will be matched by 3. Help us by giving generously and asking your friends to give as well. So if you think to what you've done in the past years on the match, do some more this year. If you haven't participated in the match in the past, this is a good time to start. On the forms that you have on your chairs, you have that ability to put in your pledge there as well. Those of you out there in Zoom land and Facebook land and YouTube land, you can visit our site chabadconeo.com/match, MATCH, or if it's easier for you to remember, /Israel. Either one will take you to the website. If there's anyone out there listening that would like to be one of the matchers with a significant contribution, please give me a call. Call me in the office. We'll meet. We'll get together. We can use your support and involvement right now. Finally, action item number 3. Ultimately, our fate is in God's hands, and it's His protection that we depend upon. Once we're doing everything physically possible in the realm of nature, we must turn to God Almighty and ask that He bless our efforts with success. In May of 1967, a Lag BaOmer parade, the Lubavitcher Rebbe launches the Tefillin campaign, asking his Hasidim to put on tefillin with anyone they meet, especially in Israel, especially with the soldiers, asking them to put on tefillin and just simply say the Shema. And the Rebbe explained to us that a Jew, even in New York or California or anywhere in the world that puts on tefillin, that helps the soldier on the front line. That there is a spiritual energy, there's a spiritual force that comes along with that mitzvah. So we're here in Agoura Hills, California, or wherever it is that you're listening to me. The mitzvahs that we do helps those of our brothers and sisters on the front line. It brings them merit, it brings them strength. So, let's focus on the mezuzot, on the doors of our houses. If we need to put up mezuzos, let's do that this week. If you need a rabbi to come to your home to put up a mezuzah, give us a call. Wherever you're listening, look up your local Chabad rabbi, give them a call, they'll come over. If it's been a long time since those mezuzos are checked, we're going to have a scribe in town next Wednesday to check your mezuzot and to check your tefillin. If you want to come by at any time just to put on tefillin any time during the day except for Shabbat, come on by. We have a stand set up in our lobby. Or perhaps better yet, if you don't own a pair of tefillin and it's time that you have a pair of your own, let us know. We'll help you purchase it. If you need financial help to get a pair of tefillin, we'll help you with that as well. And women, light those Shabbos candles 18 minutes before sunset. If you already do, find 3 others that don't and get them to light. We'll bring light to this very dark world where we increase in the lights of the Shabbos candle. The Jewish people need all hands on deck. And every one of us is a vital member of the crew. Furthermore, the greatest countermeasure we can do to combat anti-Semitism is not hide. I'm hearing so much about people afraid to have their kippah on. I'm hearing so much about people wanting to take their mezuzah off the door and put it inside the door so no one sees and identifies them as a Jew. My friends, the way we combat anti-Semitism is strong pride in being a Jew. Don't cower, stand tall. Even those that don't wear a kippah all the time, put a kippah on for an hour a week, just because. Make a statement that you're proud. Make a statement that you're not afraid. Leave those mezuzahs outside the doors of your houses. Stand tall and stand proud. I want to conclude with a short story. This year marked 50 years since the Yom Kippur War. There was a veteran of that war, a soldier who served on the Northern Front, who tells of how in those heavy days of fighting he was sent to Hermon on a very dangerous mission. As some of you know, in the early part of the conflict, Har Hermon, Mount Hermon, was a Syrian stronghold for several weeks until Israel was able to take it back. So here is this soldier. He's walking down the mountain in the darkness of night all alone. And he describes how, but for the soft crunch of the earth beneath his feet and the pounding of his own heartbeat, it's deathly quiet all around him. So try to picture it. This brave soldier descending the mountain into the valley, knowing that at any moment a shot could ring out and end his life. In fact, whenever I hear stories about our chayalim, I go back to this prototypical image of this courageous soldier all alone that night on Mount Hermon. To me, he captures the essence of every member of Tzahal. And so he says, I'm walking along, and I don't know what to think or what to say. I'm not very religious, but somehow from deep within my soul, from my distant past, a song comes to mind. A song from Psalm 23. And I begin to quietly sing to myself. Gam ki elech begei tzalma veslo lo irara. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, lo irara ki ata imadi. I fear no evil, because I know you are with me. I'm walking deeper into the dark valley, singing these powerful words to these haunting melody, and suddenly I'm overcome by this tremendous sense of deja vu. Like I've been here before, like I've done this before. But when? I don't know, because in actuality I never have. And then it dawned on me. I wasn't alone at all. I can actually feel Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob walking right alongside me. I can almost see King David and Elijah the prophet right there in front of me leading the way. I could sense the 6 million right behind me, encouraging me, strengthening me, singing with me. No, I was not alone. I was part of one long, powerful chain. And no matter what might happen to me in the next instant or later, that night, I was totally not afraid. Gam ki elech, for even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I do not fear evil, because I know you are with me. You are all with me. All of you who walked these paths before, all of the events that brought me to where I am today, atem imadi, you are all with me. May God watch over our brave members of Tzahal and protect them from all harm. Israel is strong. Israel will be victorious. We are a united, proud, caring, giving, loving nation. And with our faith in the Almighty and the resilience and determination of a brave nation, Israel is and will remain the beacon of light that shines so bright in a very dark region in this world. Now let us hope and pray with the strength of the united Jewish people, with the achdus that is being displayed throughout the world, the unity of the Jewish people throughout the entire world, and the tzedakah and the mitzvos that are being done by the Jewish people throughout the world. We merit the end of all exiles, the end of all wars, and that we merit to see the coming of Moshiach Tzidkenu. It should happen speedily in our days. I'd like to conclude tonight by asking all of you to join me in the singing of a song of Kol Ha'olam Kulo, Gesher Tzar Mi'od. V'ha'ikar, the main thing, is not to fear. Kol Ha'olam Kulo, Gesher Tzar Mi'od, Gesher Tzar Mi'od, Gesher Tzar Mi'od. Kol Ha'olam Kulo, Gesher Tzar Mi'od, Gesher Tzar Mi'od. V'ha'ikar, Lefached, lo lefached kal, v'ha'ikar, lo lefached kal. Ladies and gentlemen, we have posters for you to take on the table over here. Please take them with you. There are also pledge cards if you'd like to take. Take these sheets with you. You can turn them in tonight. You can bring them by during the day, or you can simply go on the websites that I mentioned. Let's stay involved. Let's stay connected. Let's stay united. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you very much.